So do you ever find you have moments where you get a little bit stuck in creativity, or you're trying to get past a little bit of a barrier to the next level of creativity? I sometimes run into that. And one of the things I love to do is go on an art retreat. And this last weekend, I just came out of an art retreat, and I want to share with you the journal and the flip through of that journal and some of the things I learned, and share with you a little bit more about an art retreat and why this might be a really great way for you to be able to expand on your creative practice. If we haven't met yet, my name is Nadine and welcome to Hop Along Studio. So let's get started. So maybe I'll talk briefly about why I did an online art retreat this year instead of an in-person art retreat like I did last year. So last year I went to the province next to us, which is British Columbia, and I went to an area called Sorrento and took an art retreat. And I loved it, I enjoyed it, but I realized it really wasn't my thing. And part of that is I realized that when I travel, I like to see as many things as I can. I love to go golfing, I love to go hiking, I love seeing things, and the idea of being in an art studio was a little bit stressful because I found that I really loved the creativity while I was there, but feeling like I was missing out on everything that was going on outside. So I realized that going on an art retreat for me was not the best format. So this year I decided to do something completely different. I decided to try an online art retreat. And Alyssa Burke was running an online art retreat where she would send you Zoom links, and there was scheduled class time, and there was also scheduled working time. So what I loved about this format is it ran from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m., which meant that I had the morning to go outside, go for bike rides, go golfing. I was able to sit down in the afternoon, which is usually my quieter part of the day, and work on art. And so for me, it was the perfect format. And because I was at home, I was able to use up a lot of the things I already own and just put my own supplies to use. So I was able to create from the comfort of my own home. So I want to share with you a few things I learned from Alyssa's art retreat. And if you've never taken a class from Alyssa, I would highly suggest signing up for her next art retreat. I found it so inspiring. I learned so much, and I've come up with so many new ideas. I just want to share some of those things with you today. So one thing I did when I planned for this class is I decided to use a whole whack of my journals. So this is just one stack of journals that I used. This is the other stack of journals that I used. And it was a comment that Alyssa made early on. She said, she didn't want to worry about drying time. She wanted us to be able to get in as many techniques as possible. So she said, plan to work on a lot of journals. And I have a lot of journals and a lot of partially completed journals because I don't like dealing with drying time. So I tend to have a lot on the go. So one of the journals I found most useful for creating in was the accordion journal, because what's nice about it is you can lay it out. And so she was teaching us different techniques. So I started with a scrawled background. Then I did a scrawled background and added watercolor. Then I added mark making. And she was running through these techniques really quickly. So for me, it was a great way of being able to kind of keep up with everything that she was doing. The first day we're talking a lot about adding in those first layers. These were some of the first layers that I did do. We were using a combination of acrylic and watercolor techniques that was really helpful for just trying to get some color down, some texture down, and just start filling your book a little bit. But then on day 2, we started going through adding in some more layers. And I love her process because it's so different than mine, where I usually am a person who likes to complete one project, do all the layers at one time. Her attitude is she will fill a book full of backgrounds, and she will add extra layers and add extra layers and add extra layers. And that for me was very different than how I usually work, but so freeing. With this one, I did a combination of some stamping, some different mark making, and this one's not even close to being done, but it was very abstract, which for me, I don't do a lot of abstract. A few of these backgrounds, again, I did just leave. I love the mark making. I realized that's something I want to throw a lot more into my creative practice. This one was really good for me because I don't do a lot of abstracts. And the idea of doing scribbling and then being able to cover up areas and then start adding and embellishing to them was really powerful for me. In a sense, it was getting me out of my more formulaic way or step-by-step way of doing things and just play around and see what you can create. And so there's lots about texture, lots about taking simple shapes and adding more to them. I loved this whole watercolor scrawling, just playing around with adding texture, because that's something that would be so easy for me to do, but I never think to do it. So it's, again, breaking up that page to get some beautiful backgrounds. And so this is a page I really wanted to finish. I really wanted to add in all the journaling about the weekend, because I basically was journaling about the weekend that I just went through, and then added in some more journaling as well. And I just loved the techniques that I got from this. I also love she brought in things like masking tape and how masking tape can create texture. In my own practice, I find I often get stuck on I need to be using expensive art mediums, where she has the attitude that you can use almost anything as a texture. And that's something I'm definitely going to start applying more to my work. I also created this really fun doodling layout where basically I just blocked on some acrylic and then followed her along as she was doing outlines. And from here, I might add in some collage, I might add in some other focal images. This is not a done page. And what I loved about this is I could create and just be able to add layer on layer on layer and not get so stuck on being caught up on the perfection of the process. And that was one thing I really got out of the weekend, was getting out of the perfection and more into just letting your gut take over. Just add drawings, see where it goes, see what happens, and see what you can get from it. And this is another background that I haven't completed, but again, like fairly simple, but really impactful. We also did a lot of negative painting at this art retreat, and I did them both in the black and the white. And I did one in a really tiny sketch notebook, and I did another one in my art journal. So you can see that they have a very different feel. I think both of them I'm going to do more with, but again, this is a good place. If you are new to art journaling, this can be enough, or you could be taking it so much further. So again, you don't have to also stick to always large sizes. You can also stick to fairly small sizes as you create. I also took some pages like this one where I had scraped on a bunch of modeling paste after I had finished doing some palette painting. And from there started adding more layers like she suggested. And so this isn't a completed page, but what I found really interesting about it was that over a couple days, I added a couple layers, and then we came back the next day and added a couple more layers. And it just shows that you don't have to complete an entire page at one time. You can do some really beautiful things just by working along and figuring out what kind of appeals to you in the moment. I also did something completely different that I don't usually do, which is just paint large black circles on my background. And I realized I don't use a lot of black in my work, and I'm gonna start using more black and white as I go on. I love the mandala shapes we created, but just the idea of being bold enough to just take a background and just add in black circles to be a place for something else you're going to add in later. That was another really powerful technique for me as I was learning to get out of the way that I usually create art. And so this was a page that I had a lot of the squares and the purple background as I was cleaning my brushes from ages ago, and I hadn't finished this. So what was nice about this one is I just started playing around with mark making, and mark making can go a long way. I still don't know how I'm going to finish this one, but again, it's a work in progress, but I feel like I'm past that point where I'm just cleaning my brushes on something and it's turning more into a work of art. And I also had denim pages that I don't usually use a lot, so I started adding on top of the denim some collage, some tea bags, some other items, and then I started adding and doodling. This one's far from being complete. To be honest, this is more abstract and chaotic than I usually work, but it's fun to try. It's definitely one that has a lot of potential, even though it's really out of my style. And that was an important part of the weekend, is just trying new things, trying everything that she suggested, at least on one page, just to see what resonated with me and what didn't. And this is probably one of my absolute favorite techniques of the weekend, which was using saran wrap with acrylic paint. What I loved Alyssa's take on it was the idea of outlining things, about making this almost like into some sort of map. I just love all the details that come from that black pen. I just love how this turned out. And this is probably one of my favorite color combinations from the weekend. I love how these colors work together. And this was going a little bit outside my comfort zone because I don't usually use these colors together, but I'm very happy with how it looks, to the point where I did scan this before I started working on it some more. I've added in a little bit of mark making, but I haven't gone very far with this yet. This is, again, another page in progress. So that was a lot of journals, and that was a lot of layouts for one weekend. I'll be honest, I don't think I've ever created so much art in one weekend. Yes, most of them aren't completed, but the idea was that I started in on things, I got a feeling for what the technique was, and now I can take this, finish up those small pages, and then maybe this turns into a larger page. One comment that Alyssa kept making is that this is our laboratory, this is the place we play, this is the place we figure out concepts. Maybe they work, maybe they don't. And if they don't work, add another layer. That was one thing that I found very great about this course, was that it was very freeing for me. This has really helped me move out of a creative slump that I've been going through this summer, and I feel really energized and looking forward to sharing more content in the next few weeks. But I hope you've enjoyed this little walkthrough of some of the journal pages I did, that this has given you some ideas on maybe what you can use in your journal. And if you found something that you liked in the layouts that I shared, leave a comment below. I'd like to know what you're interested in learning, and I'd be more than happy to share some of what I learned over the weekend with you. So thanks for joining me today, and if you'd like to see another art flip through that I've done, click here. This is one I did a while back that I thought you might enjoy. So I'll see you in that next video.